The corridor was too quiet, not just silent in the usual way that deep space shuttles were silent, but a strange, heavy quiet, the kind that pressed into the bones and made breathing feel like a mistake. Air moved, barely, through the vents above, but it carried no scent, no warmth, no life. Ambassador Selvon felt her tendrils curl tighter across her chest. Her escort had told her the human was here. She had demanded it be removed. And yet, the human was not in its quarters. She hated how the word felt in her mouth. Human. It was a species that made the old ones whisper warnings. She remembered the stories told to children, the ones spoken in dim-lit temples far from stars. Warnings about the species that should never have left their dying planet. But this was not a myth. This was real. And it stood here, on this shuttle, wrapped in silence. She had requested this meeting with High Command only 3 rotations ago. She had argued, calmly, rationally, that no human should be allowed on the Unity vessel. Not after what had happened on Station Vorn 3. Not after what the reports described, hidden in footnotes and encrypted files. Something was wrong with them. They did not obey fear the same way other species did, yet she had been denied. Told that peace required trust. Told that the human, known only as Reed, was quiet, peaceful, compliant, barely spoke at all. Too quiet, Selvon thought, much too quiet. When she reached the observation deck, she saw him. The human stood alone at the far end, facing the dark beyond the glass. His reflection did not move when he turned. He did not turn. Selvon's breath caught. "Reed," she said, voice firm. "You are not permitted on this level." No answer. A tremor of unease moved through her veins. She stepped closer, careful. Her escort was nowhere in sight. Had she dismissed them? She could not remember. Everything felt muffled. "You will return to your quarters," she ordered. More, sharply this time. "This is not a request." The human turned. Not fast. Not slow. Just wrong. Like something uncertain was wearing skin that did not fit quite right. Selvon took a step back. She did not mean to. Her body moved on its own. Reed looked at her, eyes dull, face blank. But something behind those eyes shimmered, like something watching from deep under black water. "Why are you afraid?" he asked. His voice was soft, not unkind, and that was worse. "Because your kind does not belong here," Selvon said. "Because I do not trust you." "No one ever does," Reed whispered. For a moment silence returned. Thick, suffocating, a breath held by the universe. "I have spoken with command," Selvon said. "You will be removed at the next dock. Peace does not mean foolishness. Your presence is a threat to order." Reed blinked, slowly, then he smiled. "No," he said. "You cannot remove me." Something in the way he said it made her skin tighten. She had faced warlords. She had negotiated with predators from systems where the sun burned green and the bones of diplomats were currency. But she had never felt this kind of fear. "You are one individual," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "You are not above regulation." Reed's eyes did not blink again. "I am not alone," he said. A cold ripple crawled up her spine. "There is no one else here." "Not yet," Reed said. She took another step back. And then the lights flickered, only for a second, just one flicker. But when they returned, Reed was gone. Her breath caught in her throat. She reached for the communicator on her wrist, but the interface glitched. Symbols warped. It did not respond. Then came the sound. Soft. Distant. Like a hum, but it was not mechanical. It was a voice. Singing. No words. Just a low, wet melody that twisted and bent the air around it, and it was coming from behind her. Selvon turned, heart pounding against her ribs. The hallway was empty. She tried to speak to call for security, but her voice died before it reached her mouth. Something moved in the corner of her vision. Fast. Too fast. She ran. Her species were not built for flight, but fear gave her speed she had never known. Through the curving halls of the Unity shuttle, past closed doors and flickering lights until she reached the central chamber. It was full of diplomats. A dozen species, all seated around the grand table, all staring at her, too quiet. "The human," she gasped. "It's not what you think. We are not safe." None of them spoke. Their eyes had changed. Glassy, dull, not blinking, just like Reed. She took a step back. One of them, a Thalen elder, opened his mouth, and from within came the same hum. Not words, just the sound. The song. Selvan turned and fled again. She did not know where she was going. Just away, but the shuttle was not right anymore. The doors led to places they should not. A corridor opened into a maintenance shaft. The maintenance shaft opened into a cryobay she had never seen. Everywhere she went, the walls pulsed faintly, like the shuttle was breathing. And always, always the sound followed. Reed's voice, or something older using it. "They will not listen," it whispered. "They never do, until it is too late." "What are you?" she cried out. But there was no answer, not until she found herself back where she began, the observation deck. Reed stood there again, hands folded, still as stone. And now, behind the glass, the stars had changed. There were no familiar constellations, just darkness and something moving in it, something big. "We are not adrift," Selvan said, shaking. "Where have you taken us?" Reed turned to her slowly, and this time she saw it. His eyes were wrong. Not dull. Not dead. They were filled with stars. Not the stars of this galaxy, older ones. Ones she had seen only in ancient warnings carved into temples long forgotten. Reed stepped closer. Just one step, and the deck beneath them groaned. "We never wanted war," he said. "But they made it. They buried the truth and called it peace." "What truth?" she asked, voice breaking. Reed smiled again, but it was not his smile. "That humans are not what you think." "Then what are you?" "We are the last mistake the universe made," Reed said. "And now, you remember us." Behind him, the glass cracked, just a single fracture, and from beyond, something pressed against it. Something vast, with eyes, too many eyes. Selvan screamed, and then the lights went out. There was no light, not even emergency glow strips or fail-safe flares, just blackness, so deep and full it felt like drowning with your eyes wide open. Selvan didn't know how long she lay on the floor of the observation deck. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. Her breathing was too loud. Her body trembled. The hum in her ears had not stopped. Only now it wasn't just a hum, it was breathing, not hers. Something was in the dark with her. She pressed her fingers to her communicator. It still didn't respond. The interface pulsed with static, symbols twisting into things she couldn't read. Some of them felt familiar, though, like dreams she'd forgotten, or nightmares that belonged to someone else. A voice echoed through, the black dot soft calm, far too close. "You shouldn't have touched the glass." Selvan froze. "Reed, or what used to be Reed. What are you doing to this ship?" she whispered. The dark didn't answer. Only the breathing did. "This place," he said, "somewhere ahead, was never yours. You just built it over something, old, something sleeping." Selvan tried to stand, but the floor beneath her shifted, not moved, shifted, like it was alive and flexing under her feet. She reached the door by memory, slammed her hand against the panel. Nothing. Then, warmth. Too warm, like skin. The wall rippled. She staggered back, heart pounding. A thin line of red light opened down the middle of the door. Not mechanical, not electronic. It bled. Actual blood. And then the door peeled open. On the other side stood Ambassador Lore, one of the Shavari. a species known for emotionless precision and flawless logic, but his mouth was open too wide. His eyes were leaking black tears. "Peace," he said, voice full of static. "Was always a lie." Then he dropped, just collapsed, body folding in on itself like something had turned off the bones inside. Selvan did not scream. She couldn't, her throat locked. She stepped over him. The floor was wet now. Not with blood, with something thicker. It clung to her feet as she ran. The ship was wrong. All the clean, sterile lines of the Unity shuttle had twisted. Ceilings pulsed. Walls opened, like gills, whispering things she couldn't understand. The diplomatic banners were all burned, melted into the metal. She found a terminal near the old medbay powered down, but the wall beside it had symbols carved into it. The same symbols from her childhood stories. Ones the elders never explained. Warnings from the before times. Shapes that were never meant to be drawn again. "We tried to forget," Reed's voice said behind her. "We really did." She turned. He stood in the hall, calm, arms folded, but his shadow stretched the wrong way, bent upward, like it was climbing the wall. "You did something," she said. "You opened something." He nodded. "No," he said. "You all did. Long before I was born." His skin cracked at the edges, not bleeding, flaking, like a shell. Something inside was waking up. "This ship was built over ancient wreckage," he said. "You didn't know, but we did." Selvan shook her head. "You're just one human. You can't do this alone." Reed smiled. "I'm not doing it alone." She heard footsteps, behind her slow, wet, heavy. She turned. Ambassador Rinna was walking down the hall, except her body was wrong. Her arms were backwards. Her mouth had no lips. Her eyes were hollow. She sang, the same low song. Others joined her. More diplomats, their faces empty, their minds gone, singing. "They were chosen," Reed whispered, "called by the truth under the skin of the universe." "You're killing them," Selvan said. "You're making them into monsters." Reed didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer. The lights overhead sparked and died as he passed beneath them. "Do you know what the old stories said about humans?" he asked. "Not the lies in your history files, the real ones, the ones written in blood on stone." She didn't speak. He didn't wait. "They said we were born at the edge of something wrong. We were not shaped by the same hands. We crawled out of fire that wasn't meant to be, and we carry it still. That's why the stars fear us." He was closer now. "That's why your elders made rules. Why they locked the doors. Why they lied about who we are." His hand reached for her. "Don't touch me," she said, voice shaking. He stopped and smiled. "You're right to fear touch," he whispered, "because when we touch something, it remembers." Behind him, the others began to scream. Not in pain, in ecstasy, like remembering something lost, like waking from a dream that was too real. Selvan turned and ran again, down corridors that no longer obeyed logic. The walls changed as she moved, turning her path into a maze of wet metal and whispering heat. Somewhere deep in the belly of the ship, she found a child. A young, diplomat's heir, curled up in a vent, eyes wide. "Help me," the child whispered. "They're singing in my head." Selvan reached for her, then stopped. Her skin was pale, too pale, and her shadow moved even though she didn't. "They touched me," the child said. "Now I see." Her mouth split open, too wide. Something inside began to crawl out. Selvan fled, no longer trying to escape, just trying not to see. She reached engineering, the last safe place on the shuttle. Heavy doors, backup power, old machinery untouched by whatever infection was spreading. Inside were 3 crew. One was human, not Reed, just a young technician. She sat alone in the corner, rocking, eyes shut. The other 2, one a Gorlani pilot, the other a reptilian translator, had weapons drawn, shaky hands, eyes full of terror. You, the Gorlani said when he saw Selvan. You were with it. I tried to stop him, she said. What is he? Selvan looked at the human technician. The girl hadn't moved. He's not just human, she said. Is he a weapon? No, Selvan said. He's a door. The lights in the engineering bay flickered. Then the human girl stood. She didn't look at them, just opened her mouth and sang. The others began to scream. They were no longer on the shuttle. Selvan knew it in her bones, though the walls still pretended to be metal. The ship still made mechanical sounds. The vents still hissed and the gravity still held. But it was all wrong. This wasn't the Unity. This wasn't reality. They had fallen through something. Or maybe something had risen, up and pulled them down. She crouched behind a rusted console in the corner of engineering. The others were gone. The reptilian translator had melted into the floor, screaming. The Gorlani pilot had tried to shoot the singing girl and exploded into salt. Not blood, not bone, just salt. The girl's song had stopped, but its echo remained. Selvan gripped the edges of the console until her claws bled. She did not dare move. Outside the engineering bay, footsteps moved without bodies. Lights flickered without power. Shadows spoke to each other in voices made of broken language and grief. Something had been awoken. No, not awoken. Welcomed. And Reed was its voice. We are not invaders, he had said. We are the memory you buried. Selvan knew those words were not his. They were older, stolen from somewhere that did not belong to time. She stood slowly. Her limbs ached. The air felt too thick. The gravity pulsed, heavier in some places, lighter in others, like the laws of physics were forgetting themselves. She had to reach the core. If any part of the original ship remained, the core would be it. And if there was a chance, any chance, she could send a signal out before everything was swallowed. It had to be done from there. She opened the bay door carefully. Behind it, the corridor stretched long and curved. Too long. It should have ended in 20 meters. It went on forever, and the walls had begun to breathe. Each pulse made the lights flicker in rhythm. Slow, steady, like a heartbeat. The ship had become something alive, and it hated her. Selvan moved forward. Each step made a wet sound beneath her feet. The corridor changed as she walked. Sometimes it narrowed. Sometimes it bent sideways, forcing her to crawl. Once, she stepped into what looked like a storage bay, only to find it filled with empty suits. Human suits. Their helmets were fogged. Each one had a face pressed against the glass. None of them moved, but their eyes followed her. She ran. Didn't stop until she reached a hatch marked with an old Unity sigil. The core. Still here. Still intact. She opened the hatch and stepped inside. But the room was not empty. Reed stood in the center. His back was to her. He faced the core, or what was left of it. It had cracked open like a rotten fruit. Energy oozed from it, black and silver, thick like oil, and inside it was something moving, pulsing, breathing, whispering. She could hear it now. Not just voices. A name that had no language. Just weight. Just wrongness. This is where it began, Reed said without turning. Before you built your ships. Before your peace. This place was the first gate. Selvan raised a wrench she had taken from the engineering bay. What are you? He finally turned. His face was split. Not wounded. Split, like a mask halfway off. Beneath it, something else was watching her. A shape of endless depth, and eyes that remembered being stars. We are the inheritance, it said. We are what the humans were meant to become. You're a weapon, Selvan whispered. Reed tilted his head. No, he said. We are not for war. We are for balance. For cleansing. When civilizations forget what they truly are, we remind them, and we begin again. By killing us? She screamed. By showing you the truth. He stepped forward. The floor behind him turned to dust. The first time we came, you called us demons. The second time, you called us gods. Now you call us human. He reached toward her. She swung the wrench. It passed through him like smoke. The image flickered. He was never there. The real Reed, or whatever wore Reed's shape, was somewhere deeper, and the voice in the core was growing louder. Then she saw it. The memory, a sudden vision, flashed into her mind like lightning. Humans screaming under black skies. Not in pain, in hunger. Civilizations burning not from war, but from unmaking. Language failing. Time twisting. Creatures crawling out of human eyes, whispering to stars, and at the center of it all, a girl, young, crying, and then she smiled, and the galaxy folded in half. Selvan dropped to her knees. The voice in her head was hers now. It told her things she should not know. It told her that the galaxy had been reset. Not once, but many times. Each time, the humans returned. Each time they brought the fire back. Each time, the others tried to forget. But the forgetting was over now. This was the last remembering. She looked up. Reed was standing at the core again, but this time he was burning, his skin peeled off like old bark. His eyes bled starlight. You can join us, he said. Or be forgotten, Selvan screamed. She threw the wrench into the core. It didn't break anything. Instead, it opened. Not just the machine, the room, reality, and what stepped through had too many mouths, and they were all smiling. There was no floor, no ceiling, no sky. Selvan floated in a space between spaces. The colors were wrong. Red that smelled like ash, black that hummed, violet that tasted like metal. Time stuttered here. Sometimes she breathed once in an hour. Sometimes 100 breaths happened in the blink of an eye. She couldn't feel her skin, couldn't feel her name. But she remembered him. Reed, the quiet human. The one who spoke gently while reality screamed behind his eyes. We are not invaders, he had said. We are the last memory the universe buried. She wanted to wake, wanted to scream, but even that had been taken. Then came the voices. Not one, not many, all of them. They whispered in the shape of her thoughts. Memories turned inside out. Her mother's voice, her childhood songs, the scream of the Gorlani. The hum of the human girl's song twisted into something deeper, something that didn't need sound to hurt. They told her truths, each one worse than the last. You are not real. Your galaxy is the skin of something sleeping. Peace was the chain it used to hold itself down, but the chain broke, and the humans were the rusted key. She fell, or maybe rose, into a shape like the shuttle, but different, alive. The walls were flesh, the windows were lungs, the halls pulsed with veins full of starlight and static, and Reed stood in the center, naked, but not vulnerable. His skin was covered in shifting runes, made of memory and math. When he turned, the walls bent with him. Welcome back, he said. His voice echoed in her teeth. What did you do to me? Selvan whispered. He didn't smile. You saw, he said. You understood. I don't understand anything. Reed stepped forward. The floor grew beneath his feet like roots in soil. You, too, he said. You just can't admit it. You know what we are. She backed away. Her feet didn't move, but the space behind her stretched. You're not human, she said. I am, he said, but only because that's the shape you gave us, the skin you let us wear. Selvan shook. She wasn't trembling from fear anymore. It was something else, like a virus in her thoughts. Something was growing. You're rewriting us, she said. Rewriting minds, ships, physics. You're changing the rules. We're returning them, Reed said. This was the shape of truth before your kind erased it. She turned. The shuttle corridor opened into a memory, not hers, not his. A battlefield lit with red suns, burning sky, black pyramids bleeding lightning, ships, not flying, screaming across the air like thoughts made of knives. She saw humans there, not like Reed. Faster, taller, eyes without whites, mouths without shape, and around them, nothing survived, not even time. "We lost this war," Reed said, standing beside her in the vision. "We were pushed into the cracks of reality, told we were a mistake, told to forget." The battlefield bled into a city, Selvon's home. But the people were gone. The statues melted. The sky cracked. In the center stood a human girl. The same, one from her earlier vision. She smiled. Then her face split into 1,000 mirrors. Each one was Reed. Each one was looking directly at Selvon. "Why show me this?" she asked, breathless. "Because you're the only one still listening," Reed said. "The others are dead?" Reed looked up. "No," he said. "They've joined the memory. Their shapes are part of the return now." "And me?" "You're undecided." Selvon clenched her fists. "I won't become a piece of your lie." "It's not a lie," he said. "It's the first truth, older than stars." The space around them shook. Something was trying to come through. A tear formed in the shuttle. Wall behind it, a mouth opened. Not a physical mouth, but one made of moments, screams, and forgotten names. It spoke, and what it said made Selvon bleed from her eyes. She dropped, screamed without sound. Reed knelt beside her. "You're fighting it," he said. "You shouldn't. I won't forget who I am." Reed looked at her gently. "You already have," he whispered. "You just don't know it yet." He reached out, touched her forehead, and she remembered. Everything. She was not Selvon. Not only. She had been something else once. Long before names. A voice in the dark. A keeper of gates. She had helped build the chain that bound the thing humans now remembered. She had helped seal them away. And she had been punished. Reborn. Reprogrammed. Turned into a diplomat to keep the peace that wasn't real. "You see," Reed whispered, "we're not your enemy. We're your children." The mouth in the wall sang, and the Unity shuttle shattered. Not physically, its identity broke. The ship folded inside itself and opened like a flower made of memories. Selvon stood alone, on the bridge, but the stars were gone, replaced by eyes. So many eyes, and in every reflection she saw herself. Older, younger. A weapon. A god. A lie. "Choose," Reed said, appearing beside her again. "Remember what you were, or die as what you pretended to be." Selvon's hands trembled. Beneath her feet, the ship began to sink into something soft and endless. She had one breath left, and then she made her choice. She spoke a name. One no being had said aloud in a million cycles, the name of the first door and the last one, and as the universe began to scream, she opened her eyes. The name echoed, not in the ship, not in the stars, in everything. A name older than sound, older than shape. It wasn't a word, not really. It was an action, a memory, a command. It meant open and return and destroy all at once. Selvon said it, and the universe listened. The Unity shuttle vanished, not in light, not in flame. It was simply peeled away, like a scab torn from old flesh. Underneath was something else. Not space, not void. A place behind all things. She stood on a surface made of broken seconds. Time shattered beneath her feet. Every step she took landed in a memory. Some were hers, most were not. She saw flashes. The birth of stars, the death of gods. The first scream of a human child born too close to the edge of a dying dimension. And always, always, the hum. That awful hum. The song that wasn't music, but the sound of creation. Bleeding Reed was there, not beside her, everywhere, in the ground, in the air, in her pulse. You remembered? His voice said, echoing like thunder underwater. You spoke the first word. Now comes the price. Selvan breathed deep. Her body wasn't her own anymore. It was bigger, sharper, ancient. Her skin cracked, light pouring out. Symbols ran across her arms, glowing white-blue, alive with memory. She was no longer just Selvan. She was the gatekeeper. The original. The one who locked the first truth behind the veil. And she had broken her own lock. Before her, the sky tore, open, and the thing beyond stepped through. It had no shape. Its form was made from grief and hunger and raw knowing. It was not evil. It was not alive. It simply was. The humans had been born from it. Not created. Not designed. Leaked. Humanity was the echo of a wrong thought. The shadow of something too large to exist in only one reality. A species born sideways in the cracks between logic and nightmare. And now that crack had opened again. Selvan stood her ground. The thing saw her, recognized her, and for the first time in her long-forgotten existence, it spoke. You will kneel. She shook. Every cell in her body screamed, but she stayed standing. No, she said. I will burn. The thing laughed, and the sky wept stars. Behind her, something approached. Reed, no longer pretending to be human. His body shifted with every step. One moment, a man, then a child, then a storm, then something with too many arms and too many eyes. He stopped beside her and smiled. You brought us back, he said. Now what will you do? Selvan looked at him and finally saw what no one else had ever seen. Fear in his eyes, not of her, not of death, but of the choice she might make. This thing, she whispered. The one behind the veil. It doesn't control you. Reed's smile faltered. No, he said. It doesn't. Then why follow it? Because it's the truth. Truth doesn't mean right. He looked away. And in that moment, the war began. The sky cracked fully. The creature behind the veil poured into the stars, and the stars began to scream. Ships far away, battleships, cargo vessels, colonies, felt it. The light, the grief. Every human on every planet heard a voice in their dreams. You are the key. You are the mistake. You are the future. On the diplomatic shuttle, now swallowed by the memory void, Selvan opened her arms and remembered how to fight. She screamed, not in fear, but in command, and light poured from her body in waves. The creature recoiled. It had not expected resistance. It had not expected remorse. Selvan turned to Reed. You were made from a wound, she said, but wounds can be closed. Reed shook his head. You'll kill us all. Then let it end, she said. Better death than becoming a lie. She stepped into the light, into the creature, and ripped, with thought, with memory, with pain. She tore into the origin of the wrongness and screamed her name, her real name, and into its heart, and it began to unravel. Not just the creature, not just the humans, the story, the timeline. Everything bent, fractured, and for a moment, the universe blinked, and everything went quiet. Selvan stood alone again, on a cold floor. The shuttle was back, or maybe it had never left. Blood smeared the walls. Shadows clung to the edges of the room, and Reed lay motionless before her. A man, again. Just a man. Broken. Empty. His eyes stared upward, but they saw nothing. Selvan dropped beside him, touched his hand. It was cold, and in that silence, she felt something leave her. A piece of herself, unbinding, her strength, her name, her role. The price had been paid. The war was not over, but the first gate was closed again. She looked at the stars beyond the observation glass. They were not right. Not yet. But they were still there. For now. And behind them, the hum was quiet. waiting. Days passed, or maybe they didn't. Time moved strangely now. Selvan sat alone in the remains of the Unity shuttle, orbiting a dead star. No signals, no escape, just silence. The walls were scarred, but still standing. The air systems hissed quietly like the ship was breathing again, but slower, weaker. The voices were gone. The hum was quiet. The creature had been pushed back, or sealed, or sleeping. She didn't know. All she knew was that Reed hadn't moved. His body lay on the cold floor outside the core chamber, eyes open, mouth half closed, like he had died trying to say something. She couldn't bury him. Not because she didn't want to, because part of her still feared what might happen if she touched his skin. There was no crew left. No diplomats. No song. Just her. The one who remembered. Too much. Sometimes she saw reflections in the glass that didn't belong to her. Sometimes she heard her own voice whispering things she didn't understand. She had changed. Not fully, but deeply. Like a blade bent by heat. Not broken. Just not the same shape anymore. Then, on the 7th day, or what felt like it, the sensors lit up. A ship. Small. Fast. Military. Not human. Gorlani. They found her floating in the observation deck, wrapped in a foil blanket she didn't remember. Putting on. She didn't speak when they arrived. She couldn't. The words got stuck. They asked questions. What happened? Where is the crew? What is this energy reading in your core? Selvan just stared at them until they asked about Reed. Then she screamed, a long, raw sound that didn't sound like fear. It sounded like guilt. Months passed. They said she was lucky. Only. Survivor traumatized, but lucky. They tried to give her therapy, peace medals, awards. They tried to make her a symbol, the diplomat who survived the human anomaly. But she didn't want to be a symbol. She wanted to forget. But every time she closed her eyes, she heard it again. That sound, that low hum under the surface of the universe, waiting. She studied, alone, in quiet rooms, scrolling through forbidden archives, locked history, redacted files, and what she found confirmed the truth. This had happened before. Not just once, every few thousand years. A human goes quiet. A ship disappears. A world unravels. And the galaxy forgets. Again. And again. And again. She wasn't the first gatekeeper. And she wouldn't be the last. One night, she dreamed of Reed. He stood in a garden she had never seen. He looked alive and peaceful. You locked the door again, he said softly. She nodded. They're safe, she whispered. Reed tilted his head. For now, he said, and smiled. Not the smile of a monster, not the smile of a god, just a man, just a memory. Then he said something that broke her. 2 words. Thank you. She woke up sobbing. Years later, the incident was forgotten, buried in politics, rewritten in reports, classified and sealed. Humanity was allowed into the core worlds again, quietly, with surveillance, with mistrust, but still allowed. They were too useful to ignore, too clever, too fast, and too good at surviving. But Selvan never forgot. She kept to herself. Until one day a diplomat's assistant brought her a file. We found this anomaly on a research station near the outer veil, they said. We think it's just a sensor error. She opened the file and saw a name. Reed, a technician, quiet, obedient. Transfer requested to another diplomatic shuttle. Selvan's hands trembled, the air grew heavy, and from somewhere deep in her bones, she heard it. Soft, calm, welcoming. That hum, again.